We're gonna be in our participant manual, starting on page 42. Identifying strategies. In this session, we're gonna discuss connecting needs, outcomes, and strategies. Community action agencies are more than service providers. And then we're gonna do a couple of activities. And our learning objective for today is we're gonna understand the difference between outcomes and outputs, learn the difference between provision of services and strategic thinking as methods of identifying strategies that you use at your agency, understand proxy outcomes, which are outcomes that stand in lieu of outcomes, and understand the importance of selecting strategies and services to be delivered by an agency that match and identify the community needs, resources, and desired outcomes. And then we're going to also consider the assumption behind the services and strategies. And we're all on page 42. We need a rational way to identify strategies and services. An agency will implement to achieve the outcome identified. Some agencies will look at and say, they've got a plan, they got to develop a plan, but then nobody has any ideas on how to do it. Some consider, abracadabra and poof, it's gonna come out the sky, or, but no one has any clear input on how to identify the strategies that are needed to make the plan work. On page 43, because we are results oriented, it is important that we understand the importance of strategic thinking as we select the services and activities an agency will invest. Some agencies move towards service provision as they got major funding from specific sources to focus on specific areas of need, or as they get small grants to provide specialized services. An agency must recognize that the choices they make regarding the services they provide will reflect the fundamental commitment of the agency towards the reduction or elimination of poverty. The legislation that supports the community action has always stated that the agency should focus all available resources of a community on eliminating the cause and condition of poverty. I want to have someone to read on page 43. Ms. Craig, would you read the first paragraph for me on page 43, please?
Yes. As the agency considers its actions with its available resources targeted to achieving the identified outcomes for its families, communities, or the agency, will it be a service provider, self-sufficiency, anti-poverty agent, or both?
Okay. Now we're going to talk here, we're going to look at the two models here. Provision of service model, and then strategic thinking model. Mr. Johnson, if you would read the provision of service model for me, please. And then after that, Ms. Presley, would you read the strategic thinking model?
Agencies that are organized to meet specific short-term services, such as emergency services, transportation, weatherization, sometimes serve many customers. The challenge is being able to identify long-term change in the customer's lives. Providing services because funding is available can distract you from a more effective selection of services and strategies. Failure to link activities together to form a comprehensive set of services and advocacy strategies may reduce your effectiveness in assisting customers to move out of poverty. Sometimes there are intended consequences of doing the same services you always have done, enabling the continuation of poverty.
Ms. Presley?
Strategic thinking model. The development of comprehensive strategies must include an understanding of the power of bundling services rather than providing services that meet an isolated need. Agency must find ways to identify the combination of services that are most effective for helping to change lives and support movements out of poverty. In addition to providing direct services, agencies must explore the impact of creating community engagement strategies, advocacy, and policy change strategies, and other activities that are focused on reduction of poverty. Agency must strengthen partnerships to meet the need that the agency cannot address alone.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Johnson and Ms. Presley. Provision of service, that's what we're funded for. So we do things, that, which limits us from moving our customers from poverty to self-sufficiency. With our agency, we do, like I said, we do things that are funded for. And then the challenge, we have challenges. That is it gonna be a long-term change or just for that moment? Then more effective selection of services that we provide for them that are geared towards their community needs and assessment to bring them out of that poverty. And then it also reduces our effectiveness by assisting the customer to move out because we're limited in what we can help them with. Because that's what we're not funded for that. People have been calling our center for rent, but then, we tell them we don't have rent, we just have utilities. And so, but they're needing rent. And so, but we can't take the monies that we have funded for the utilities and use it on rent. So that's why the provisional service is harder because it's basically what you're funded for. But then when you got the strategic thinking model, is how will we keep it? How do we keep funding for things, like I said, the community gives we do the needs assessment and then they can identify the needs that are great in their community. So how do we get funds to provide services for those types of needs that are being brought up, from the community? And then we've started with our agency bundling services. So now we've got a grant for water assistance. So not only do we do Lalahi, but then when they come in, we also ask them, well, do you need assistance with your water bill? So that's called bundling services. And then, whatever else that, other centers, counties may have, like Washington County has some other things. But, so it's just, we've got the things with the provision. Most of the time we think that's what we have funds for and that's all we can do, but then we got to get into strategic thinking of how can we do more service for the community for moving the families from poverty into self-sufficiency. So we're to establish a holistic strategy approach to the primary mission of the CSBG network, elimination of poverty, reducing the effect of poverty. And as we know, as we deal with, a lot of customers, some of them want to stay there. That's just, that's just their mindset. When does the next program start? They're already preparing to, so we've got to help, try and change their mindset that some you won't, but that, it's more than just this. We want to see you do better. There's GED programs, there's other things to help you move forward out of that poverty mentality. Let's turn over to 40. I've got an activity, and it's called Identifying the Assumptions Behind Services and Strategies. Because the new books is not going to be in your book. This is the new portion that they added, so it's not going to be in our participant manual at this time. So we've got here our activity. Identifying the assumptions behind services and strategies. Okay, number one, I want some input on this. Provide budget counseling to low-income people who are deeply in debt. What kind of counseling would you, or case management would you do for a customer customers who are deeply in debt?
Is something bank control?
What are some of the things about their reasoning for being in financial debt?
Spending a lot more than they
Overspending, too many credit cards,
Okay, we got overspending.
excessive credit cards.
Not enough income.
That's a good one.
Not enough
Spending
food.
on the wrong thing. Only a wants. Still needs.
Bad budgeting.
Credit cards.
Oh, credit cards, too many credit cards. And that's good, this is good. And remember, we're making assumptions. We're identifying the assumptions, you know. And then on number 2, distribution of monthly food box. So what would we think that doing monthly food boxes would do?
What would it do?
Yeah, if we distributed monthly food boxes.
You can eradicate hunger.
So you said it would eradicate hunger? All right. Okay,
Eliminate food shortages, like at the end of the month.
okay, and then our third one. Create a community coalition to work with employers who do not give jobs to locals. What is something that could be done about that? What are some assumptions about that? To create a community coalition to work with employers who do not give jobs to locals.
Well, like they could do like the, some of the plants come in, they have a class. They send them to school to make them qualified for their jobs.
Okay, so there are people in the community that have skills, but they're not hiring. So, you know, it's how we can reach out to that, you know, employer to, you know, help, you know, get people that, because there are people that, you know, we, you know, see who have master's degrees and don't have jobs.
Yes.
You know, so they've got skills and they got the education, but they don't have the jobs.
Connections.
Right. Or is there training for people who wanna learn skills? You know, these are some things. And then there are local people who want to apply for jobs. So how do they apply for jobs, you know? So what kind of things do we have? And those are just some examples that will go here. You know, how will we help them, you know, make that connections with the employers?
To get with,
To
the-
get-
but
to
I would
get
say
the
to
jobs.
get with the human research officer at the plant
Mhm.
and try to set up an appointment, explain the situation, and try to work hand in hand with human resources. Cause you're gonna have to bring them in.
Right.
So I would get with human resources, explain the situation, and try to just work hand in hand together.
And see, that's the part, you know, with the bundling service, you know, and I like the title case management because it broadens what we're supposed to do, you know, instead of just letting them come in and, you know, they sit down and we pay the bill and then they go on the way. You know, we're talking to them and we're finding out other things that they need, you know, because if we don't talk to them, we don't know what their family needs, because all of them are not just gonna come out and tell you. They're thinking out how next, what's my next step to get to the next point so I can make it through next month. You know, there are some people who are like that, then others, you know, that come through, they're just trying to get it for this month, and they know that in 3 months, I can come back in 3 months, you know. And so, you know, it's, you know, those are good. And then on the first one, again, in the first service, people with low income get into debt because they do not manage their monies correctly, was one of the things we said. People in debt do not have skills to get out of debt. And if they learn to budget their money, they'll be able to get out of debt. And then our agency staff who are skilled in providing budget counseling. And then on number 2, the food, people need food. They need to have food every month. So if we just did, you know, and basically those what we said go in hand with that, because it's not that they're just gonna need it for that one time. You know, they're gonna be able, how are they gonna be able to get food each month? You know, they cut the food stamp down, so, you know, and especially with our elderly folk, you know, they can go out there and get a job. They give them $15 and they get $771 a month. I mean, go figure. And these are elderly people that, you know, they've done their time or they've reached that retirement age. And so then you got distributing food boxes is helpful to families who need food. Distributing food boxes will produce some outcome. So, and it will. It'll produce some, but it will not eradicate them being hungry next month. It's gonna help, but it won't eradicate it. So, throughout the discussion, we need to remember that sometimes assumptions are correct, and sometimes they're not. So, you know, we have to use assumptions, but we got to use them in the right context. We can't look at a person and just think that, oh, they dirty, they stink, so, you know, they don't wanna do nothing. There could be a reason why they're dirty and they're stinking, you know, and it couldn't be something that they're just lazy. They could have had a life-changing, you know, so assumptions, and that's one of the things where assumptions are not good. You know, when we get that mindset, our walls go up, because we already assume that they're in this condition because of they lazy. They ain't wanna go nowhere, they don't wanna do anything. And so that assumption is not always, correct in some instances. So we just have to be careful in our assuming. And then here we got a couple of scenarios, that we're gonna do also.